Bridging the gap between formal education and informal learning, that is maybe one of the biggest challenges of the educational system and also the museums and science centers which are working at the moment. And that is really the work that I'm doing at the University of Helsinki. Let's say that I started for 25 years or more at Heureka, and then I have my offices in the both places now. Let's say that my plankton is in the science center exhibitions and my fishes are in the internet, and I'm doing my research there, but I'm collecting my empiria from informal learning settings. And I have been doing that work also in cooperation with many people who are sitting there now in many European projects, and actually that's why we have our flag there, that it's also related to some of the projects. Very often when people speak about the museums, and if you ask from the people how old are the museums, people say that they are thousands of years old because they react in the way that pyramids or the Viking boats are hundreds and thousands of years old. They think that the museums are as old as the objects, which is not truth. So very often Ashmolean Museum at the University of Oxford is referred as the oldest museum of the world. Of course, if there is a university and there is something in its lecture halls, and if it's staying the same for 100 years, it is changing into a museum. That's why, for example, the main exhibition of Heureka is called main exhibition and not permanent exhibition, because science is all the time changing. I think one of the biggest misconceptions of science, even for educated people, is that people think science equal the truth. It's not. Actually, science is one of the few things created by Homo sapiens, philosophies or religions or whatsoever, which is confessing. This is not the truth. This is what we know now. And tomorrow we should know more about this topic. So that's why also Science Center exhibition can't be a permanent exhibition. Again, Musée des Arts et Métiers, many people say that the liberty, equality and paternité whatsoever were the big achievements of the great French Revolution, but the same year they opened this institute which still exists. And of course the big achievements were kilogram made from gold, liter made from silver, and second made from which stuff? I don't know. So, and also why I took this picture here is that I think it's a very good example of the renovation of the museum. It was only Umberto Eco and some other freaks who visited that museum 20 years ago, and then they started the renovation project. And at the moment, I'm really calling it very often a science center and not a museum anymore. Actually, I feel that when people try to make the shift between museum and a science center, I think we can skip the word museum. Zoological museum is a science center specialized to mammals or butterflies or whatsoever. Natural history museums are science centers specialized into the butterflies or plants or ecosystems or whatsoever. Of course, I know museums have their task doing the research and renovation, etc., and science centers only have the task to present the things. Curiosity cabins, we all know, one of the finest in Firenze by medicine. I jump over it. And again, coming back to the question, people think that the museums are very old. They are only about 100, 140 years old institutions. This is a very exceptional place of its age. The point is, why museums were created about 100 years ago? It was nationalism. Museums were supporting nationalism showing the history, the science, the nature, all the other features of it. And that's why it's interesting that in Athens, the great things have existed thousands of years, and only this year, last year, the museum was opened there to present the things. Also, the great expos, world expos, did have a huge effect on science education, science and technology. Nowadays, people remember only that Eiffel Tower was going to be taken down. But this was the truth for several expos that they were arranging there. The Finnish expo was there behind the Eiffel Tower, and they were presenting the Sibelius music and Galengala art and the first ever world icebreaker. Equidons, I will jump over because of it has been referred here many times. I was saying equidons, not dinosaurs. One important thing in equidons was that it was the first ever evidence for extinction. Until that, it was capable to say all the species have been created and have existed and will be everlasting. When these equidons were found from the coal mine, then it was not possible anymore to say that there is not such a thing as extinction. Again, this was shown already in the previous one, saying that actually it tells for me that there is now really a trend of renovating Natural History Museum. It's really a big trend happening in Paris, in Brussels, in Tallinn, in Helsinki, everywhere. So the time has come that the natural history museums are reacting, that something is happening in the society, and also society is reacting to that. Short break there. I'm involved in one project in EU level where 6 small natural history museums are trying that what we can get out while using our contents also in digital form, creating a portal called Natural Europe. The project was started this month, so not much to tell about it. But again, an indicator that a lot is happening. While introducing me, you said that Heureka have been and is one of the leading science centers in Europe. And the point is that I can make the question why it was opened more than 20 years ago in Finland, at the time when there was maybe only 5 modern hands-on interactive science centers in Europe. Why this trend was very strong in Finland. It was really a question that bothered me while working there and doing it and opening it, why it happens in Finland. And now afterwards I can say there are more than 350 members in Excite, the Science Center organization alone. I could say that from 340, the director or the main planner has visited Heureka. And of course the Heureka people say to learn how good the exhibition is, and the others say that to learn from their mistakes. This is what I love in the Science Center movement, that the ideas are going freely and rapidly from place to another. So that there are no patents for this. Now I'm having you a lecture of Finnish. The most easiest language of the world, totally alphabetical, phonetical, so you read it and pronounce it exactly in the way it's written. So, Isidore, please read. No, yliopistojen. Good. Excellent. So it was proved, there's the evidence, easiest language. So this unknown professor is presenting the unknown football player to the very well-known President Eisenhower and saying, don't worry, old guy, during one curriculum year, we have developed a football player that can kick the satellite around the orbit. So it is the so-called Sputnik phenomena. In US, they really needed something like this to understand that they are not nation number one in all the areas of life. They were, and they are, in many of them, but it was clear that in 1957 they were not nation number one in the field of technology, in the research, at least not the space technology. When the Russians, the Soviet Union, had launched the first Sputnik, Laika the dog, sad story, and then Yuri Gagarin around the orbit. So even the politicians in Washington understood that if they can send something around the globe, they can send also the half circle behind to the backyard of White House or whatsoever. And then started the big phenomena called Sputnik phenomena, which was meaning total renewment of the science education, and here meaning physics and chemistry. School curriculums were renewed, teacher training was renewed, the stipendium system was renovated so that also kids from other than higher middle class could go to the universities to study. All that. And one of the key persons there was Franz Oppenheimer, who really brought in this hands-on principle. It's the joke from the museums, hands-off, don't touch. And the science center principle is hands-on, do it yourself, only if you are interactive, the things work. If you are passive, hands-off, it's there. So, and this was leading to the big movement of the science centers, and here also an important thing was Oppenheimer, when he opened his science center called Auditorium in San Francisco in the 60s, he immediately published Auditorium Cookbook number 1 and 2, which contained all the ideas of the science center. In the same way that Jorge is welcoming you in his institute, or Pelle Persson to Heureka, look and see, copy it, or copy it and make it better. That's maybe the part of the science centers. I'm jumping over, and what I can say is that as a reference that what happened in Finland 25 years ago, it was exactly the same reaction that Finland was a country which was most agricultural countries of the Europe. Or if it had the industry, it was paper, pulp and wood industry. Or if it was chemistry industry, it was chemistry for paper, pulp and wood. Or if it was a machinery industry, it was the machinery industry for pulp, paper and wood. Good specialization, but too narrow. And then, actually, that boom, where, for example, Nokia was the leading rubber boots machinery over the Scandinavia and Europe, they changed their idea to do things like that, or things that are in your pockets. So, creating Heureka was a reaction for that. A big change in the whole society, let's say to the post-industrial society where research and development and science is important. I jump over this very quickly, just to show how the crises in the society have affected to the public understanding of science and science communication. Chernobyl effect, awful, but also a very big crisis that the journalists who normally have the background in social sciences and humanities really didn't understand at all the knowledge that was given in form of amount of becquerels, etc. So new type of science journalism and science communication is needed. Or the Halley Comet thing, AAAS in US, they are calling their science education program now 2061, meaning when the Halley Comet is coming next to be seen. So that it's not anymore the Sputnik phenomena, It's something we can predict, and we have to do it all the time. Climate exchange was a very difficult topic to discuss with the greater audiences even 5 years ago, when it was a controversial thing even among the researchers, how then the journalists or science centers can tell about that topic. That is still one of the biggest dilemmas and challenges, how to tell about controversies in science. PISA results in science education has been something that has been taken seriously in some countries. For example, Germany is a very good example where they really try to do something for the topic. And in some other countries, there has not been seen any reaction. I just take this as a last slide. I found it last November in the New York Times. So if Eisenhower was dealing with the American football, now the winner of the science competition for the senior high school students, the winner did have the basketball robot. And of course it was if football was for Eisenhower, basketball was for Obama. How many minutes do I have?
At least 10.
Okay. So, learning by chance is something that many psychologists don't even count as a learning. It's like this white stuff, how you call it in English. But it comes somewhere. you don't even notice it. So, for example, you learn some words in Dutch while being there for 2 days. Then formal education system is very similar in all the, let's say, Western countries, nearly all the world. It's the school system from preschool to universities, containing also special education and vocational schools, adult education, etc. And then informal learning means what we learn from parents, brothers, our friends, peer groups, many organizations which have not been meant for learning at all. Then, of course, museums are there. No one can deny the value of libraries in learning process. And you are doing it voluntarily. Then we come to the big question of mass media, that do we learn from there? Of course. Let's say, I think that nearly everyone in this audience, like me, have learned from the biology book during the time when DNA was just discovered. And then there is also the so-called RNA, or in Finnish the translation was rubbish RNA, which is only the stuff that is filling the rest of it, that it stays there. And now 3 or 4 last medical Nobel Prizes in medicine have been received in the research of RNA. Where else could I have learned it than from media? Maybe from the Natural History Museum. But so that there are lots of new things that has been learned from the media. Even the traditional mass media, you can say that newspapers, they lie or they don't tell it. But the point is that if you make a mistake to the science pages of a newspaper in any country, you can make even how big mistake, saying that Cruyff was playing with number 7. And the feedback is not so harsh if you make the mistake in the atom weight of iron. But then comes the point that web, which was really the breakthrough of informal learning, there the case is different. How in hell you can change the mistake, because you don't see who has created the website. You have no access to that. It was the PC computers and web that were doing the breakthrough of informal learning. When I was doing my PhD about informal learning and motivation, during that time informal learning was still seen mostly as the criticism against the school. because of, for example, two great books. Ivan Illich wrote the book Deschooling Society. And then one of the leading brain researchers of the world, Howard Gardner, wrote the book The Unschooled Mind. Even the names of the books were harsh criticism against the school system. And it was their purpose to show the weaknesses of the school. But at the same time, people didn't notice that actually they are also offering another solution, how you should arrange the teaching and learning system, what improvements you can do by utilizing what is happening in outside the formal education. Still two examples. When 1997 I had a presentation in NAST Science Learning Conference in US, and the topic was motivation and informal science education, blah, blah, blah. Then everyone that was listening to me, they were psychologists. Next year, I was collecting more data, and the topic was science education in informal learning settings. Everyone that came to listen to me were the experts in science education, physics and chemists. And then 1999, when informal learning had their own platform, or what they were calling it. Yes, platform. First I was, yes, now I have done it. After 15 years in this field, now we have our own forum. And then I was very disappointed because it was much better to get the feedback from the people who are looking at it from a little bit different angle. And I think that what... I show this here in between. Also, Hoki, who used to work for the Natural History Museum of London, he made the same schema that there is the formal education and informal education and the virtual world and the real world. And just then placing in these typical four fields or Latin squares that the real things and informal things are like botanic gardens or science centers or museums, zoos, etc. School is real and formal, then different type of virtual things are located there. And now if I go back to this, where science center and museum is there. Today it's Tuesday. And if there was a school from Leiden suburb and the teacher came here to show the different species or things related to the evolution for the kids at the age of 14, and she was acting exactly according to the Dutch national curriculum and the local curriculum, and the kids were learning about that topic a lot because of the guide and things they had done before and afterwards. Is it informal learning? Totally formal learning. School group coming here, doing it there. And at the same time, it might be that the boy at that class next Saturday, when his cousins are coming to Leiden, and they think it's raining, what we are doing, we can't play the computer games all day long. If he takes his cousin in the same institute, and they will go exactly to the same place with the fossils, clearly informal learning. So my idea nowadays is that when I don't have to be so concerned about this confrontation of informal learning, formal education anymore, somehow I feel that we have won the struggle. So now it's confessed. So I think that the best way of, the phrase I'm using nowadays even more is open learning environments. Meaning that that the classroom can be used in very informal. The teacher can utilize, for example, last spring, winter, I was in a classroom in Finland and the teacher was teaching the rabbit. He was dealing the classroom in parts. Some kids, they were drawing the rabbit from the stuffed version. Some others were going to the computer game about rabbits, how it's getting its food. One group was watching the school television program about that topic. One was doing something else, and 2 wild boys, the teacher sent out to the schoolyard where was snow, do the tracks of rabbit there. So really combining different type of elements. And the next week of that, I was visiting the local technical museum, where the kids were not in the exhibition, but they were taking to a certain part, and they said, take the hammer, take the piece of granite, put the glasses on. It was totally formal way of learning. So my point is, no matter if it's formal education or informal learning, it's the same thing. The main point is that you learn. And one of the main elements in the teacher training nowadays is how the teacher can choose when it's the wise thing to teach the astronomy in the classroom in a traditional way, when to go to the telescope of local astronomy freaks, when to go to the planetarium of the science center, etc. It's really the work of the teacher. And then this is the slogan of our previous EU project, where also Nemo was cooperating with us, hands-on, brains-on. I'm really, although most of the science center people are underlining this learning by doing concrete things, it's really the matter that what you also see using all your 5 senses. You can't underestimate also the emotion that comes from the thing. And doing a lot of research in this topic, and also one interesting thing is that how the modern technology can come to the museums. For example, you can't touch something, but with the augmented reality, you can see the ruins as they were. This is what is in the lenses of that guy, and when I was also using it. But what I still want to come and end my story 3 minutes. People are learning a lot in the museums and science centers. People can mention the things that they did learn there even 20 years ago. And we can find many scientists who are saying that they started their career while visiting the science center or science museum. Harry Crotter has told it. Then, okay, I'm not going into details, but many of them. So then the point is motivation. And in my research and also in my practice, I see that however the kids are in the school 200 days per year, the most lucky ones can visit Naturalis twice a year. You can't compete 202. Just to be intellectually honest, you can't say that the amount of knowledge that they learn can't be it. But there is some things from which the main thing is motivation and new questions that arouse from visit. I'm distincting the motivation in 2 parts. One is extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation I'm delivering to situation motivation, which means that new places like museums or science centers, aquariums, new countries, they nearly automatically give to the Homo sapiens, what is this place? They discover it, and it's a very strong impact. But at the same time, it's very short-lasting. The learning is easily distributed and orientated to irrelevant subjects. Humor is, for example, one way, or the colors. But if you are creating the motivation by these other things, you always have to have a bigger impact, more lights, more colors, more humor, etc. And you can't do it forever. Then the other typical way of extrinsic motivation is instrumental motivation or achievement motivation, which is based on either the salary or the punishment. I can get any one of you out of here by motivating you in instrumental way. Either to give you enough money. Is it enough to go? No? Or go out. Go out. So if the punishment is strong enough, you go there. And this is typical for the working life or the students, that you just have to pass the examination. Sometimes we all need instrumental motivation. We need deadlines to get the things done. But however, instrumental achievement motivation is something that don't fit into the any informal learning places. And intrinsic motivation is the part where conflict is normally the thing that you think that it's a bad thing. But the conflict, intrinsic motivation comes from the conflict. You understand that that's something nice, which I can't do yet, but I want to learn it. One example, when the small kids are reading the comics, they enjoy the colorful pictures. But the youngest one understands that the older ones enjoy it even more. Why? They can read the bubbles, the text in the bubbles. She wants to learn to read, because it's even more fun to read the comics if you can read. So it's the conflict understanding that I can't do this, but if I learn it, I have even more fun. So, and I think that one of the big challenges of museums, science centers is how you can change this situation motivation that is arousing nearly automatically into the intrinsic motivation and not causing any instrumental motivation. Many of the research results I have received are supporting it, and they can be easily found by Googling. Thank you.